Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Planet Lizzdom. My name is Lizzdom. I am your host, and this is one of my favorite days of the week. This is a show and a place and a platform for entertainers, entrepreneurs, artists, and creators very much like yourself. And I'm so happy to bring you a new guest every single week. You know, I always ask people when we're talking about oddities and strange things, I ask them, are you in the market to buy your first death head moth? Perhaps you're looking to add to your growing taxidermy collection. In fact, are you ready to purchase your very first bird's skull? Or are you just in the mood for something more strange? You know, the Skull Store really is the place for you, and it's located in the East End of Toronto. And, you know, the Skull Store, they're really masters at curbside pickup and shipping. And, you know, Ben Lovatt heads up an excellent team of folks who work hard to bring you the weird and the wonderful, including an exotic animal rescue and a museum full of strange and beautiful antiquity. Everybody, I want you to give very warm welcome to Ben Lovatt of the Skull Store. Hi, Ben. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. You know, I was looking around our house today and I noticed that we have quite a few things that we have bought from you over the years.
It happens.
It does happen. And, you know, whenever I talk about the Skull Store, a lot of people, they are so enamored with what you do. For those who may not know about the Skull Store, you know, how would you describe, you know, what it is you do over there?
Well, put simply, we're the world's biggest oddity shop. We source the weirdest. Oh, hey, Ryan. So we search all over the world for strange, the unusual, the ancient. You know, we don't really deal much in the way of antiques. They're too young for us. But if it's something ancient, prehistoric, or just freaky, chances are I have it or I'll find it for you.
Very cool. You know, and I love origin stories, and I like to know what brought people to where they are now. What got you started with oddities and bones and skulls?
Well, in a personal level, I've always been a nerd. Surprise. But the first fossil I ever had, I was at summer camp at Lake Erie, and I was smashing rocks, as a little boy does, to see what's inside the rocks. And one of them was hiding a fossil. And I'm like, how the heck did a seashell get in this rock? So that stimulated a lot of curiosity. My first more macabre oddity, I was probably 12 years old, walked under a railway bridge, and I found a mummified cat. And I'm like, scores!
Wow.
So I knew my parents would freak, so I pulled out the bottom drawer of my dresser and hid it in a little space underneath, and that was my hidden cat spot. Turned out I have a good sense for money. Those things are worth $300 each now, so if only I had a market back then.
That's amazing. When did you really realize that there was a market for it and that you wanted to turn it into a business for yourself?
Well, it was unintentional, as all the good things are. I was doing educational work. I was breeding endangered reptiles, working with zoos. But I was like, I got to make some more money, and I can't really do that because I already have 200 animals to feed. And what am I going to do? Go up to 300? That would just be ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
No, obscene at 300. So I was at a reptile expo, actually, helping a friend do some stuff, made $100 for consulting. And there's this guy there selling fossils. And I'm like, I like fossils. You can buy these? So I walked up to him, and being the negotiator I am, I said, excuse me, sir, I need wholesale. I'm going to open up a business for doing this, so I need a great deal. And he's like, okay, what's your budget? And I'm like, I have $100. I don't think I convinced him, but he humored me. He sold me a little fossil fish, a dinosaur tooth, and a couple other odds and ends. And I took them in my pocket, went to a friend's place, and I sold them all to him and made a clean $30. So at this point, I needed more fossils.
Yep.
So I found out the guy had a warehouse. I went and visited him, and I think I had just signed up on Instagram. I think it was my 4th or 5th post. It was a photo I took of a prehistoric bison skull sitting on this guy's floor for a impossible to ever achieve $1,400. And I was like, yeah, I'll take a photo. I can't afford that. My budget's $130 today. And some tattoo artist messages me, says, yeah, I will buy that right now. Get it to me. So I convinced this total stranger to let me take this expensive skull, took I think it was a Go bus down to London, Ontario, and sold him this super heavy skull. And the tattoo artist looked at me and said, if you ever want to make a living, find a skull, find a tattoo artist, and you'll pay your bills every month. And that's literally what I did. And the company exploded. I traveled Canada with a trunk full of dead things and a backpack full of fossils.
Gosh, I love that. Some people have skeletons in their closet. You have them in your backpack.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it goes without saying, being someone who does sell the strange and the unusual, I imagine you probably have some interesting stories.
I have quite a few. When you deal in the weird, you find the weird, and I love weird people. They're the most interesting. Some people are a little much, though.
Yeah.
So do you want to hear a story about a adventure in the world of human bones?
Ooh, yes.
So this is one of my favorite stories, and if it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't believe it. But I got an order on my website. Happens all the time. Someone wanted a human femur shipped down to Florida. So I'm like, okay, whatever, sure. I'll throw it in a box, bubble wrap it, get it on the way. They called me 10 minutes after the order came through, being like, did my order come through? This is important. Is my order through? And I'm like, calm down. You got a confirmation email, but I'm glad you're enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything's fine. So I ship it. I send it to them, send them the tracking number. They call me, verify the tracking number. I'm like, it's exactly what I told you. Sure, here you go. Then about a week later, I get a notification, a Visa card dispute has been opened over this purchase. And I'm like, you confirmed your address, you confirmed your information. I looked you up online. It all checks out. What is this nonsense?
Yeah.
So I call her. I'm like, 'cause I got your phone number. You placed an order. I'm like, what is going on? You placed an order. You confirmed your order. You got your order. I can see from the tracking number. What's up? And she's like, you didn't fully properly advertise this bone. You see, I bought this bone to raise the dead. And it was in my barn. I did my spell, and the spirit is furious with me. You did not tell me that this bone had a furious spirit. So I need my money back, and you need to come down here to Florida, and you need to get this bone. I'm not even going to set foot in my barn until you do it.
What?
And I'm sitting down to dinner with my girlfriend at the time, and she's like, what is this conversation? She was a new girlfriend. She was just getting used to the weird stuff.
Yeah.
And all I could think of, and the only thing I could say to her is, I'm sorry, ma'am, our return policy does not cover the undead.
Yeah.
She was furious. She's like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, put it on Craigslist, curbside pickup only, like whatever,
That's amazing. Like, I have worked in retail for a very long time, and that would be the first time I've ever heard that.
Yep. So that's an actual official company policy now, that our return policy does not cover the undead.
Wonderful. What about curses?
Well, curses cost extra. Any good salesman knows how to upsell.
That's true. It's a gift with purchase that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Now, I remember a couple of years ago, you were trying to, you had ordered some artifacts for your museum that I think got held up at the border.
Yeah, that happens.
I think they got lost. No, I think they got lost with a delivery company.
Yeah, that happens. Everything so far has turned up. More recently, and actually it was when your intro there was an Egyptian mummy skull. So a more recent incident that I had with the border. I mean, when customs finds a box with a human mummy head in there, you expect there to be complications. I know it's all legal, but still, you're gonna freak out some people. So yeah, it got stuck for 3 months, which is basically a record for us.
Okay.
And yeah, so I emailed them. I tried contacting them. They're like, we don't give updates on active investigations. And I'm like, investigating what? I have the same rule book as you. And then eventually it just turned up. But it turned out they did see something out of my box. The guy I bought it from owns one of the biggest beef jerky companies in the world, and he threw in a free sample for me. So, according to the Canadian Customs, American jerky is not allowed, but Egyptian jerky is a-okay.
Customs can be so funny that way. I have to ask, you said it was a record. Was that a record in terms of how quickly it went through the border or how long it took?
How long it took? Usually things are like they go a lot faster. They know me pretty well. Actually, at the last fan expo that happened before the world got all extra crazy, this woman walked past the booth, stopped, and just pointed at me and was like, "You." And I'm like, "There's a lot of reasons to be mad at me if you don't like my stuff, but which one is it today?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "I am a head supervisor at Canada Customs, and anytime there's an unusual parcel, it winds up on my desk. Do you know how many times I've read your name in the last 6 months?"
That is so funny. You're a celebrity there.
Yeah. And then I was at the airport clearing another parcel from customs, and the guy's like, "Are you the skull store guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What's in the box?" I'm like, "Well, you got the label right there. You're the one stamping it. You tell me."
I love it. Do you, I mean, you should get one of those, frequent customer punch cards,
Yeah, it's true.
Now, I actually found a photo on your Facebook page of you with a bear skull on a plane.
Yeah, that happens too. That's a 40,000-year-old extinct cave bear from Romania, actually from Transylvania. So maybe it's a vampire because of those fangs on there.
Yep.
I'm also well known at some airports for always having something bizarre on me. I always factor in extra time for them to pull me aside at security, and probably about 70% of the time it's because they're just like, "What is this? Give me the elevator pitch science lesson." And in 2 or 3 minutes, I blow their minds, and then they smile, hand me back my stuff, and let me on my way.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I mean, I would hazard a guess that you're a pretty good teacher, because you're pretty efficient with your information.
Yeah, well, that's the core of what I do. Like I had my educational site I used to run called Educated Earth was all about science and technology videos and articles. It was about learning and then teaching. And the beauty of doing stuff online is that you don't have to be an expert on anything. You just have to stay one lesson ahead of what you're teaching. So I have infinite knowledge as long as I can read the curriculum the day before.
I love it. Guys, if you have any questions for Ben, give him 5 minutes to figure out what he's going to answer to you. Cool. But honestly, leave us a comment and a question. I actually wanted to bring this up because I think it's a really great question that Ryan is asking. He's saying, when you have a chance to answer, Ben, would you ever consider opening up a museum oddity shop in Winnipeg?
Probably not. But I do often, in normal times, I do actually set up pop-up things in Winnipeg. A good friend of mine named Kurt Wiscombe owns a tattoo shop, Tattoos for the Individual. And it's a beautiful art gallery. And every time I drive across the country, he absolutely insists that I stop by and do a gallery night. I also do trade shows in Manitoba as well. The reason I wouldn't open up a shop there is the market in Canada is actually pretty small. It's much larger now. More people get into it. And with the power of the internet and social media, everyone thought they were the only weirdo out there until they found a way to connect. And basically on all my platforms, we've got around almost 200,000 people who thought they were the only one.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So when I first started this, nobody in Canada really cared about skulls. Nobody wanted them. And we've really we've made it cool. We've really put fuel on the fire of the industry. But we'd be competing with ourselves. A lot of people out there buy from us. We'd rather focus on our core museum in Toronto, our core store, and then do more traveling exhibits and exhibitions.
That's really smart. Actually, I have quite a few friends who have ordered from you over the past year who absolutely love the service that they receive with your curbside pickup.
Oh yeah, it's important to us. Like the customers are everything. I mean, without them, you don't exist. And as soon as a company loses sight of that, they shouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, very, very few issues ever present themselves. And if they do, I mean, we rely on Canada Post. It is the most reliable of any courier. We've done enough statistic stuff to see. But, stuff could get lost. I mean, one in every maybe 1,500 parcels or something like that. But
Okay.
immediately we open the insurance claim, we work on replacing, we do whatever we can to fix any problem that presents, even if it's not our fault. We empathize. We're collectors too. It
Yeah.
sucks when something doesn't get to you, and we're not going to leave anybody hanging.
Well, I love that you have something for everybody because, you don't go from zero to, a human skeleton immediately.
No.
There are what you would call gateway oddities that you purchase, like
Yeah.
a death's head moth or a bird skull or something like that.
Yeah.
Something that I thought was really cool that I saw on the Skull Store Facebook page today was this. I think it's animal bones that you've put in a clear acrylic coffin.
Yeah. Yeah. We supply artists all over the world and casual collectors. So we normally just sell these in a Ziploc bag, or just
Okay.
craft bone bags is what they're called on our website. But we're like, it'd be a lot more fun if we put them in these little clear coffins, and then you don't even have to worry about pulling out the bones and doing something. It's a ready to go display. So in worst case scenario, you make jewelry or art out of the bones, and you still got a cool little container left over.
It's true. I mean, that's something I love about bones. No matter what you do with it, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, from one end of the spectrum to this, here you have, I think that's a giraffe's bone.
Yep. That's a salvaged giraffe bone. Yep.
That is just mind blowing. The size of it is that from its like the lower half of the leg or the upper half?
That one there is it's a lower. Yeah.
The lower. It's
Yeah.
just phenomenal. Like I used to draw bones a lot when I was in college, and I love the detail in the marrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very pockmarked. If you look at a bone up close, it's actually not as smooth as you would think.
No.
And there's so much character to it. One of my favorite things is to see a cross section of a bone.
Oh, for sure.
Broken bones are very fascinating to me. Not in real life, but
Yeah. And
post.
I don't have an example with me today, but I do a lot of fossil hunting. I found dinosaurs out in the wild and stuff like that. And people are like, well, how do you know that this chunk of rock is a dinosaur bone? And quite often, that's actually what I look for. I look for the telltale imprints of where the marrow production was, the honeycomb structure inside. And sometimes there's not much left, but if you can find that, I mean, natural bone or natural stones never grew blood vessels, so they wouldn't have the structure to do it.
That is a really good point. That's a really good point. I'm sure you probably get a lot of questions from new and old collectors alike, in terms of how you can verify what it is that you're collecting. I mean, from my understanding, in the short time that I know you, you're very, very well read. You're constantly doing your research. Oh, thanks, Wolfman. Those grab coffins are a great gift for the bone jeweler in your life.
Thanks.
Wolfman's one of our biggest fans. Hi, Wolfman.
Wolfman is awesome.
Wolfman is amazing, and I hope that someday I can drag him on here as well. Something that I wanted to talk about, actually, we're talking about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I think this is so cool. Like, I love walking under this and looking at it. It is amazing. It's a T-Rex.
Yep. It's just a small T-Rex, though. It's a museum and research quality cast of a T-Rex named Tinker. My staff call it Tinkerbell because we like to dress it up and make it all pretty. But it's actually a teenager. It's literally a teenager T-Rex.
Really?
You too. Yeah. So it's a teenager T-Rex. It's only 32 feet long with 15-foot tall hips, which makes it small. They capped out around 40, 45 feet. But there's only so big of a T-Rex I can fit in our space. And fun fact, it is the first Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton in the world posed for selfies. We measured the ideal height for the front of it for selfie photography. It is the world's first Selfie-saurus Rex.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I am so doing a selfie with your T-Rex the next time I see it. The next time I see Tinker. Hashtag.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How long did it take you to assemble that?
So my friend is one of the best in the world who prepared the cast because he actually prepared the original skeleton. So quite often when you get a cast, you don't really need it to be that high quality. You can cut corners. Okay. This one, it's not like they had it put together and they molded, a whole big chunk of the back. Every single bone was individually molded. It is a T-Rex. Yeah, so every bone is individually molded. So this is anatomically flawless. Basically, unless you scrape the paint off, you have no way to know it isn't real. Wow. but he's also knows I don't want to work my butt off putting this back together. So he has a fixed segments together for us to slot into each other. So, I mean, it came to us in only about 15 pieces, which was still enough when the entire thing weighs over 1,500 pounds.
That is mind-blowing. 1,500 pounds. Like, how... I guess my question is, the space that you're in, it's not necessarily built to be a museum. How do you reconcile, assembling and displaying that safely?
Well, I guess when it came to the floors, hoping for the best, but the building was actually built at the end of World War II, and there was a surplus of materials and a lot of wealth. So the beams, we can actually see the steel beams in this thing, and the building is way over constructed, so we know it'd be fine. And then the base is actually made for stability, so nowhere much this kid's gonna jump on the side and knock it over. Yeah, my insurance people came and gave it a little shove too, just to be sure.
Cool. Yeah, I'm so weird about health and safety because I have this phobia of falling things. Like you can ask Mysterion. I cannot handle putting up a picture frame. It is the most stressful thing in the world to me. So whenever I see something hanging, I'm like, is that in the stud?
Yeah, I can relate. We put a 16-foot whale skeleton hanging off the ceiling.
Oh my gosh, yes, I want to talk about the whale skeleton. Thank you for reminding me. I love the story of how you found this.
Yeah, so those who know me know I'm a little extra on everything I do, which even this far in the interview, you probably figured out. So I love beachcombing. Who doesn't like a nice walk on the beach? So the secret to finding the best stuff on the beach is you push yourself until you're at the point of collapse. I mean, for health and safety reasons, don't do that and don't sue me if you collapse. But I go far. I look for cool rocks. I look for washed up stuff. But on this particular trip, I wanted a marine skeleton. I'm on the East Coast. I want a marine skeleton, and a seal would be so cool. So I walked for about an hour and a half on this rough terrain beach. I'm exhausted. So I take a little break, and I know I've got to walk another hour because no one in the right mind would see what's over there. Yeah. And I'm going to figure it out. So I walk another hour, and I smell death, which most people walk the other way. For me, I'm like, smells like money. So I walk around a corner, a few bald eagles take off, and there's bugs everywhere. And I'm like, well, I didn't find a seal, but there is a 16-foot dead whale here. And if you collect bones, you can't just leave that.
No.
No, that'd be insane.
Yeah.
So fortunately for me, it had already mostly decayed. There was only about 1,000 pounds or so of rotting flesh on it.
Really?
But I didn't want to do a 4-hour round trip to walk back to the car and then come back with whatever I might be able to find in the car to deal with this. That's true. Death is a lot of colors, including green.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was like, well, there's got to be some sort of law about scooping a whale.
Yeah.
So I need cell phone signal. I wade into the Atlantic Ocean. I put my cell phone up. I look up Department of Fisheries and Oceans and I call them and I'm like, what do? I found a whale and I want to keep it. And they're like, well, what's the environmental impact of your work? What machinery do you have? What vehicles? Like, are you going to disturb any ecosystems or any of that stuff? And I'm like, well, what do I have? So I look in my pockets. I look in my backpack. I'm like, well, I've got an X-Acto knife. I've got a garbage bag because I was hoping to find a seal. And maybe I see some rope washed up on the beach. And the guy on the phone just laughs and he's like, good luck, kid. I'll email you a permit and I'll call you in a week so I can laugh at the fact you achieved absolutely nothing.
Oh, wow.
At that point, I'm like, now you called my bluff. Now I have to take this thing. Yeah. So with the X-Acto knife, cut apart all this nasty stuff. Didn't have gloves. Wasn't planning ahead for this. And washed up ropes because there's fishing ropes and lines and everything everywhere. So just hacked it apart, slung sections of whale vertebrae over my shoulder, and then walked for 6 kilometers, dragging these things on the beach. Went back. I mean, there was nothing else in the car to help me when I got there the first round. Went back, dragged another chunk, and yeah. So there's an important lesson though I can tie in here. If you get a tattoo, always keep it clean. So if you get tattooed on the left side of your back before finding a dead whale, make sure you sling it over the right side.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah, it was 12 hours after a back tattoo.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I went by my tattoo artist shop afterwards just to make sure it was clean, and gave him a smell he'll never forget in the parking lot. But then the
Oh,
easy part came after that, Then it was just a 22-hour drive with a dead whale in the back of a minivan, and several months of stinking up an entire, like, several-acre farm where I live, trying to get it clean.
as one does.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this whale, do you remember that period of time vividly, or is it just kind of a hazy, romantic tale of legend?
I remember how much it sucked hauling that thing.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a better story than an active experience. People see these photos of me chopping apart dead whales and taking what I can. They're like, "Oh, I'm so jealous," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're jealous of my Instagram account. You're not going to be jealous of doing the work." In fact, with the whale, I had to do a bit more butchering on stuff because we wanted to fit it in some bins, and the pieces were too long. So I was doing it again in my friend's parking lot, and at that point, I was wearing gloves, not very thick gloves, but gloves. And my tattoo artist friend, Jamie McKay, was inside the tattoo shop and started blowing up my cell phone to make me think it was an emergency, to see if I would actually grab the phone with my whale hands.
That's a really good friend.
Yeah, it was a great prank. And then eventually I'm like, okay, it must be an emergency. I whip off the glove and I pick it up. And it's just him. He's like, oh, I was wondering if you take off the glove first. Hang up.
Well, that kind of brings us to Ryan's question. What are some of your methods to clean skulls?
Yeah.
And gloves is a great start.
Yeah, so I can give some good pointers on a bunch of stuff. First pointer is, no matter what you do, it's not going to be clean or easy. Yeah, so a lot of people jump to domestic beetles. Oh, the flesh-eating beetle. You just drop a skull in with these beetles and it's magically clean. I'll get to why that isn't true in a sec. I'll tell you what I actually do. So what we do is effectively slow cook them. You take the heads or whatever, and you put them in hot water. You never want to boil. There's two bad words in the skull industry: boil and bleach. So you never want to boil because it actually changes the calcium composition of a skull and can degrade it. I mean, think of a chicken bone you can give to a dog. A boiled chicken bone will snap and it could actually kill them.
Yeah.
Bones get brittle if they're boiled. So we get them hot. We've actually managed to kind of figure out our secret temperature of that. We use concentrated dish soap like Dawn. I mean, if it's good enough to pull the oil off of a bird, it's good enough to pull the oil out of a bird's bones. So yeah, we kind of almost simmer it in Dawn dish soap and hot water. Keep it as warm as long as we can. Strip off as much as we can at certain points, as it'll slow cook itself out. And then to whiten, it's just hydrogen peroxide. You can get it at Shoppers. You just keep it in a sealed container for the most part. Watch for off-gassing because we don't want to make any negative environmental impact. So good biodegradable dish soap becomes nothing.
Okay.
And using hydrogen peroxide, it literally becomes water and air.
Ah.
Our waste products are fresh water and air. Yeah, so we actually don't use crock pots because we find that it does get it too hot.
Okay.
Even if you have it down low, you have a heat source that's constantly on the bottom. So the average temperature will be more moderate, but it is going to overcook things on the side. We just use containers like, good Tupperwares and stuff like that. Just if you're going to attempt this, expect a lot of smell.
Okay.
And you are putting hot water in a plastic container. So if it's not a good quality one, it could crack, and then you're going to get some raccoon soup all over your floor. So maybe double layer that, do it in your backyard.
Okay. That's really good. Great advice, actually. Do it in your backyard.
Yeah, and if this sounds like it's going to stink too much, you've got, yeah, no problem, Kenton. So if you're like, that's going to stink a lot if I have this rotting animal in my house.
Mm-hmm.
The other alternative everyone jumps to, and people ask me every week, I want the flesh-eating beetles, because effectively you put an animal skull in with these bugs, they'll eat all the meat off, and you get a nice skull afterwards. You still got to sanitize it and whiten it. The problem is flesh-eating beetles stink, and you have this animal head that's still going to be decaying unless you dry it, and we do it. So as long as you have a dedicated oven and you're not sticking a bunch of roadkill raccoon skulls next to your casserole in the oven, you can dehydrate it enough. And that's why we use the African flesh-eating beetle. That's the standard because it can eat dry stuff.
Okay.
So you dry it out, which is going to stink, and then you
Mhm.
put it in with the beetles. And if you don't think a colony of 1,000 to 20,000 bugs isn't going to stink of crap and bug
Yeah.
pits, you're mistaken. It actually often smells worse than just cleaning the skull. And flesh-eating beetles fly. So that's one thing they don't tell you is that they can fly. Things online are like, oh, if it hits this
Oh
temperature,
my
they
God.
can. Believe me, if you've got wings
Oh my
and dinner's across the room, you're flying for takeout. And flesh-eating beetles eat all kinds of flesh. They'll eat your taxidermy, they'll eat your curtains, they'll eat your clothes. They're like moths. So
Jeez. Yeah.
you don't really want to create an infestation that's going to cost you thousands of dollars to remove to clean a
No.
couple of skulls you found in the bush.
So that leads me to this question. Say, for
Yeah.
example, I do find a really cool skull in the bush.
Yeah.
If I bring it to the skull store, will you clean it and prepare it for me?
Yeah, we actually do that all the time. I
Okay.
would say every week we probably have at least 1 or 2 dozen projects for people. It runs like an average of like $60. You bring us a head of an animal you found, or even the animal you found, and we'll take the head of it off. $60, you get a clean, white, perfect skull that looks like it just popped out of a Royal Ontario Museum cabinet.
Oh my God,
So
it's
it
amazing.
saves you a lot of the stuff. We have an industrial room for it. We've got industrial air scrubbers and sealed floors and all of that nonsense that'll save you from getting evicted.
And $60 is nothing. I mean, even like $100, $200, whatever the job is, you guys are the experts. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, and like we do even more complex stuff. I mean, if you're like, oh, I've got this caribou head and the antlers are 4 feet across, it's a little bit different. We're gonna have to balance it out. But actually, our pet memorials are one of our biggest things right now. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so people when their pets die, we're animal lovers, so we
Yeah.
know it sucks. But some people want more than just a jar of ashes. I mean, it's not very
Yes.
visual. So they'll want the skull, or they'll want this like to keep the skull and bury the bones, or they want a paw print of the animal, or even the whole skeleton mounted up. We do all that stuff. We've done it for things as big as a 120-pound tortoise for a zoo, down to someone's pet mice. We literally can do a mouse skeleton if we have to, or a little lizard,
Oh, that's
anything in between.
amazing. You guys can do so much there. I mean, I've seen everything from diaphanized, chameleons to,
Yeah,
this really cool jaguar that was jumping in the air. Like it just looked really amazing. Uh, there is actually a story that I want to talk about after these messages. So stand by because I think it's
sure.
really, really worth everyone hearing. But after these messages.
Step right up, boils, ghouls, and nondescripts, and start your Halloween month off at Something Strange, Canada's largest sideshow extravaganza, October 10th at the Revival Nightclub. For the price of just one ticket, you will see pain-proof freaks, human marvels, animal oddities, and so much more. Featuring acts as seen on America's Got Talent, Penn and Teller's Fool Us, Discovery Channel, NBC, all over the media, hosted by Planet Lizzdom and myself, Mysterion. October 10th at Revival. Get your tickets now on Eventbrite before they disappear.
Hey everyone! Planet Lizzdom now has a Patreon. Your help will allow Liz to make the show even bigger, cover costs, and help bring on celebrity guests. Go to patreon.com/Planet Lizzdom and pledge now.
How legit is that? I've got commercials.
Nice. For awesome causes too. I love that show,
Thank you. Thank
and I
you.
love your show.
Thank you. Now, very quickly, Something Strange has been moved to October 10th, and I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. The Skull Store is a very big part of Something Strange, and that's not the story I wanted to talk about, but I did want to celebrate how much a part of that show you are. You're always my favorite vendor, the go-to vendor. So guys, when you come out on October 10th, bring a little bit of extra scratch because there might be some things or two that you may want. But something that I wanted to talk about, and this is something that made me fall in love with you and your team so much this past Christmas. It was in the news, and for the life of me, I couldn't find a photo today, but I wanted to talk about it. There was a gentleman who had lost his leg, and he wanted to memorialize it. And I'm going to let you take over from there because it's a beautiful story.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So we we were notified of a Facebook post of somebody who made a joke, being like, "My leg got ripped off in an accident. Anyone out there that can taxidermy it for me?" And people were like, "Ha, that'd be so funny." But have you ever heard of Skullster? Maybe those guys will do it. They're weird. Um, and people were taking it seriously. So my employee Dan, he's an amazing guy. I'm sure you guys will meet him on the show one day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he got in touch with the guy, and he's like, "Tell us more." So it turned out he's just a young guy, maybe 21ish, 22, and he was walking home from work, and some guy lost control of their motorcycle and ran him down on the sidewalk, and it literally ripped off his leg. And he's like, this has destroyed my life. It's gonna change my entire life. I want my closure to be me receiving my leg back. Can you guys do it? And we're like, well, we can do it. We can take flesh off of a bone, even if it's a human bone, but you gotta get it to us. How does that work? And there was no actual answer in Canada on how that works. So he talked with his doctors, and at first they thought, because at that point he was still in the hospital intensive care, and he'd made this post on Facebook while killing time on his phone, tripping on pain meds. And
Oh,
the
wow.
doctors are like, "You're just really high, kid. When you come down, you won't want it." And when he realized it actually could be a thing, when he started coming down, he's like, "I want it more now." So he put pressure on the doctor, and the doctor's like, "Oh, well, the ethics board is going to have to approve this. The lawyers are going to have to approve of this. It's a lot of paperwork." And he's like, "What do I got to do? I'm stuck in bed. Bring me the papers."
Okay.
So him and I worked together. I drafted stuff because we have a museum. So I drafted stuff on museum letterhead explaining our biosecurity controls, because we work with animal stuff. We don't want to also spread animal pathogens or,
Right.
especially relevant these days, pathogens from an animal to a human. We actually take care of all of this stuff. We have biosecurity protocols with everything we do. And it's easy enough to apply that to a human if we can apply that to a zebra. A human leg's a lot smaller. It's easy to contain that. So long story short, we actually managed to get it released. But the hospital wasn't wanting it to happen and kind of wanted to discourage us from ever wanting to do this again. So they didn't freeze the leg. They refrigerated it for 2 months. So we get this package, and I work on dead whales. I've smelled a lot of bad smells.
Yeah, I just did the math. I'm like, wait a minute. It was refrigerated.
Refrigerated.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was not fresh. And it's an interesting way to study human psychology. There is a very primal instinctive response to being around a rotting human.
Wow.
When you're a human, your survival instincts kick in a way that none of us were prepared for. We knew we had seen an image of what the leg looked like in that state. We had already cushioned ourselves on what it was going to be like. But as soon as that scent enters your nose, I'm sorry if I get too morbid or creepy for you guys.
Oh, this is important.
It was a subconscious fear response that we didn't even know that it was like a flight response we were having. We were all just unnerved and uncomfortable, and we had to kind of verbally process what we were feeling to figure out what it was. So what we did is we boiled pots of water and filled pans with it around our workspace. Oh, not water, with coffee.
Smart.
Because the smell of coffee actually completely, or at least mostly, neutralized the odor.
Yes.
It was still very, very psychologically heavy working on a piece of someone we had met, let alone being a human tissue. Like we couldn't make this an abstract, faceless cadaver. It was like, this is Justin on the table right now. So we got through it. We did the work, and we presented to him on actually 2 or 3 days before Christmas. It actually was coincidentally, that's when it lined up. So we called him and we're like, we've got a Christmas present for you if you want to come down. And he's like, is it my leg? And we're like, we're not going to tell you until you get here. And sure enough, yeah, he arrived, and we sang Happy Leg Day to you. And gave him back his leg. And yeah, he's just the sweetest kid. And when he reached out to Taxidermy Studios, everyone said, hell no, I'm not getting involved. And one guy, thank you. Yeah, one guy actually reached out and said, yeah, for $15,000, I will do this for you. What? And when we heard that, we're like, you know what? We're not even going to charge you. I will pay the staff for their time. I'll give them a little bonus for some freaky work, but there is no way in hell we are going to charge you for this service. This is part of your therapy. This is part of your recovery from the most traumatic incident that it's more traumatic than most of us can even comprehend.
Absolutely.
So no, we did it all pro bono for him. We gave it back to him, and in the process, he's become one of our closest friends. He actually volunteers at our museum now from time to time. Like he loves. I mean, it gives him a sense of purpose, but it's a community, so he's
I have
one of us.
goosebumps. Well, that is so cool. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and he's doing great actually. I saw him 2 days ago, and so some of the skin was salvageable. So it made for some unique things. He got his first tattoo, but it wasn't a piece of his body attached to him.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, a friend of ours, Ben Ackerman, a wonderful tattoo artist, actually tattooed a piece of his severed skin to give to him for his first tattoo.
Cool.
And then some of you folks know I'm good friends with Dead Mouse. So what we did too is Justin was like, I've always wanted to meet him, but it's hard to finagle a guy like that. So Justin gifted a piece of his own skin. My friend Ben tattooed the Dead Mouse head on that, and now Justin's officially moved in with Dead Mouse.
I love it. Oh wait, that's not the one. There we go. I love it. There we go.
Yeah.
I need to fire my production team. They're not on the call today. That is really, really cool.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, and Joel too. He's a wonderful guy. Like, I mean, you look at that collection, like he's got an elephant skull and all that stuff. It's like this really the sketchiest stuff he got from me, and I can verify exactly where it all came from. That guy is just as conservation minded and nerdy as I am. We get along really well.
Well, and you have I mean, look at all of these beautiful mounted heads. You know, people probably always ask, well, yeah, I'm sure the question comes up every day. Mm-hmm. How do you obtain these? You know, what are the ethics involved? You guys are very, very ethical about how you obtain all of your specimens.
Yeah, we would rather lose a sale than compromise our ethics by any means. And there's been plenty of opportunities that we don't take just because we can't verify. We had, I like to say, if we had no sense of ethics, I could fill a Walmart and we'd be no better than Walmart. Yeah, so it's all about sustainability. So our number one rule in anything we do in sourcing is nothing's dying to get in our store but the customers.
That is clever.
Yep. So it's all salvaged byproducts. I mean, you're eating steak for dinner. What happens to the head? Well, if I have anything to say about it, it's coming to me. You know, I work with zoos all over the world. I mean, zoos have to pretend nothing ever dies because even if an animal dies 3 times past life expectancy, PETA's like, you monsters, look what you did. It's like, well, we didn't invent old age, but thanks for trying. So we a lot of zoo animals will actually buy the dead animals from the zoo because the money supports the care of the live ones. And then we create an educational specimen. And as part of that deal too, we offer at no cost to a lot of the zoos we work with the opportunity to get things back.
Oh.
So if it was an animal that was particularly important or has research potential for them or whatever, we will actually mount the entire skeleton for them. Like we'll do a $1,200, $2,000 task or whatever, because we know it's all about supporting an educational facility and a conservation group, and that's what we are too. So we're all in this together.
I love that you do that. I mean, something that, you know, again, everybody may not be aware, you know, prehistoria is a really huge part of what you do, and education is incredibly important. And you also share your space with an exotic pet rescue, which I think is just fantastic.
Yeah, that was actually a natural extension of what we do. I mean, I worked with live animals. Oh yeah, there's Van Gogh, my little bird bud.
Van Gogh. This the one time Van Gogh sat on my arm before he decided he didn't like me.
Well, I was in the room and he was picking his favorites. He likes you, but if I wasn't in the equation, he would have hung with you longer.
It's true. Van Gogh loves you. And he's just one of a gaggle of wonderful, wonderful animals that you guys house.
Yeah, we started off with live animals, and we were stuck true to our roots. I ran my own little rescue. We had limited capabilities, but I breed critically endangered tortoises and different reptiles from around the world. And then I ended up rescuing a rescue. The pandemic forced Hands-On Exotics, a local animal education group, and a rescue to lose their facility because they do outreach stuff, and that's how they pay their bills. But there was no outreach. There's no municipal events. No one was going to senior homes. So they had no way to feed all these animals. So they asked me if I could adopt basically their animals so they could shut down, go out of business. And I said, well, why don't I just adopt you guys? I will clear a couple thousand square feet of space, and we'll set up an educational zoo in our museum. So all of these rescued animals actually have a place to live, and we can use our stage to teach the public about their biology and their conservation status.
I love it. And, you do have such a wider range of animals. You've got birds, you have tortoises, all kinds of lizards.
Yep. Because Hands on Exotics has worked with the federal government as a rescue as well. They have a permit to have any Canadian wildlife that needs rescuing. We don't have space for a grizzly bear, but technically, we could have. But we actually do have skunks and opossums.
Yes. Your opossum. I love her. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, her name's Morticia.
Morticia.
Yeah, she's Morticia. She's cross-eyed. Yeah. She's super old, but she's a sweetheart. She's like, give me my snacks, and you can give me some scritches as long as I got snacks.
She's my spirit animal. Give me some snacks and some scritches, and I'm absolutely and some beer.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to ask, because with things opening up a little bit and things finally starting to maybe progress a little more forward, what is what are your plans for Skull Store?
Yeah, so I can give you guys a sneak peek update of news, because you're watching one of my closest friends' shows. As of I think Monday, we're making the announcement that we're going to start taking appointments for visitors at our shop. The museum's going to take more time to set up. We didn't want to throw all of our money into setting up cabinets for no one to see, but we are going to start booking appointments for people to come and shop. It'll be limited group sizes, appointments on the hour. You'll have to have proof of vaccination, and wear masks. But we're all in this together, and that's how we get through it faster. But we want to sell you dead things. We don't want to turn you into one.
Yes, thank you for that. And I have to say, you guys really are. You have set the bar very high for safety protocols on all fronts, which is something that I really admire about you. And I constantly brag about that. And I always tell everybody, skullstore.ca is great for shopping, because your online orders, your delivery, your curbside pickup is really, really good. And I think, a lot of businesses have not picked up the slack there, but you guys have really done well. And I've spoken to strangers and friends alike who all say consistently the same thing, that you guys are just so accommodating.
No, yeah, we do our best. Right now, our website promises we'll ship once a week, because we'd rather under promise and over deliver. At this point, I would say mail hits the post office probably about 3 days a week. The only thing that takes an extra couple of days is usually our butterflies, because to make sure they're the best quality, we actually frame them on order. And if it's been pouring rain outside, the humidity makes it take a little longer to spread.
Okay.
But last thing we want to do is have this big inventory sitting out, just collecting dust. We want to make sure something that's iridescent, beautiful like a butterfly, you get it brand new, ready to go. Wow,
I didn't know that, actually. I actually have a moth that I found ages ago, and I just let it sitting in an ashtray, and I forgot about it. Right. And I'm looking, I'm like, how the heck would I mount that?
Well, we can do that for you too.
Good to know. If people do want to quote for things like that, is skullstore.ca the best place to go?
Yeah, you can get our email address on there. We have a shop number that's on there. It isn't manned yet, because we haven't really needed someone to be a receptionist, but we check it a few times a week. But if you email, it goes to my phone, and whether or not I should be taking time off, I'm probably going to answer an email.
When you're an entrepreneur, it's what you do in your sleep. Yeah. You answer everything. Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I completely forgot. I'm so excited. You have actually a wonderful personal collection of museum that you've been growing over the past few years, including, some wonderful, beautiful oddities right there. And in fact, I believe that goat at the bottom is beside you.
Yep, I'm in a hotel not too far from home, working on a special project, and I wanted to see how far I could push the hotel's pet policy. They said you can't bring a pet in, so this one's technically 2.
I love it. And it's just so cool. I actually am very smitten with the Egyptian sarcophagus you just recently got for your collection.
Yep. Yeah, that's an amazing piece. One of the, I guess, upsides of the pandemic and people not having all the extra income is that a lot of the big collectors are willing to offload some cool stuff, and they're also more flexible on payment plans. we're also not doing as well, but I like payment plans. So it may have taken me 8 months, but I've got a really cool sarcophagus now as a centerpiece to my archaeology collection.
It's very cool. One of my other favorite pieces that you have is the big phantom shield from
Oh yeah.
Papua New Guinea.
Yep. Yeah, so that one's really cool. Wish I had a photo to show you guys of that, but
I know, I wish I did too. I'm sorry.
oh, no worries. But yeah, so it's really weird. It's literally a war shield from a tribe in New Guinea, and it has the comic book hero the Phantom painted on it. And so it's an example of a cargo cult where our culture can be misinterpreted without context. So if you're a tribesman living in a jungle and you see a comic book, it's really going to come across the biblical imagery. I mean, you've got the Phantom, immortal being,
Yeah.
like very powerful. I mean, it's got 2 guns. That is the epitome of power if you're in a tribal conflict.
Oh yeah.
So they're like, well, I could paint my deity on the shield, or I could paint the Americans' deity. Seems to be working well for them. They're the ones with the helicopters and the battleships pulling up. So yeah, it's actually been used in war to fight against enemies and channel the Holy Spirit of the Phantom.
That is far out. I know I had asked you, how much you were selling those for, because sometimes I have an idea and sometimes I don't. Do you get a lot of folks kind of asking you for quotes?
Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, the stuff in my museum, it's permanent. Like the idea is in 200 years from now, it'll still be on public display. I'm trying to build something much bigger than myself, but it also works as a catalog of maybe I can find a second one. It may take me, another 60 years for a tortoise to die, but I'll get you one of those eventually. So like the Phantom shields, there are a few on the market I have access to. I believe they're still available, but they do go for around, to the public, $6,000 to like $8,000. The beauty of having a museum is people cut you a good deal when they know it's for education.
That's true. That is very, very true. And your museum is wonderful for education. Is there anything on your bucket list that you're searching for?
I mean, when you've got your 6-year-old dream of owning a T-Rex, it's kind of difficult. I mean, I would love to have a full Egyptian mummy. I mean, I've already got like a hand of one and 2 heads, so I mean, I'm partway there.
Okay.
But I don't really know. Like I used to set my mind on something, and I know I'd find it, and then because I wanted to find it, I would overpay just so I could get my hands on it. But I find the right things come at the right time. I'm not a very super spiritual person with that, but if you've always got an eye open for opportunity, you're going to see it when it comes. And that's what I try to do. But open mind, open opportunity, and if something strikes me and I've just sold something good, then I may as well be broke again.
I love it. I like the way you think. You got to spend some money to make some money. Put it out there to bring it back in. Sure. One final question that Ryan wanted to know: do you guys do payment plans for human skulls for customers?
Yeah. So quite often we do. It's hard for us on some items, especially if something just came in, like an item like a human skull. The margins almost don't exist. It's just you got to have it if you run the skull store. You can't have every skull but a human. But we're open to talking with people and figuring things out. We always do our best. I mean, I've been there too, where I've seen my dream piece and I'm like, I can pay this off. I just need 2 weeks, and they're like, no, we don't get it. And I'm like, well, now I feel depressed. I've had a bad experience with this business because I don't get to have my dream piece. So we do what we can when we can. We can't always, but we do our best.
I love it. Well, I have one last question. Mysterion has taken over my Facebook page, and he wants to know, how do you get your beard so silky smooth?
Yeah, so working with all these skulls, we do find a few ghosts, and one of them is a wonderful hairdresser. Gets me ready every morning.
I love it. Well, Ben, I look forward to seeing you October 10th for Something Strange at Revival. Guys, head on over to Facebook to see all the information you need to know about Skull Store, or go to skullstore.ca, capital S for both words. And Ben, I want to thank you very, very much. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to hearing all the great news about the resurgence of visitors to your store.
Sure, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Ben. Be well. We'll see you soon.
For sure. Take care.
Bye. And guys, I want to thank you so much always for tuning in every week. You make this show so much fun. Your comments and questions tonight were top shelf. Amazing. I love that you guys tuned tuned in, you turned on, and you took part. You're my favorite audience of all time, and I'm always so excited to see you guys. And actually, I have a really great announcement to make. We're syndicated on Carney Show on Twitch out of New York, but it's actually been moved to tonight. So after this show, come on over, tune on in, where you can see my episode with the amazing and inimitable John Kippen, amazing magician and motivational speaker. And you can check out the Devil's Hour right afterwards. Jeff with a G is making some really great content, and it's one of my new favorite channels, so go check it out. If you love what I'm doing, please feel free to show me a little love and be my patron at patreon.com. We're adding some really great benefits and promotions for you, because this show really, at the end of the day, is all for you. So guys, I want to thank you so much. I'm so excited to bring you a lot of really great guests coming up, leading up to Something Strange. And in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. Be well, everybody. We'll see you soon.